All right, welcome everybody to the first ever episode of the Near Mint Hockey Card Podcast. I am Elan Dubrofsky, and joining me is someone who I've never met in real life, but I talked to him yesterday, and I'm looking forward to getting to know him over the next million years while we do this podcast. It's Ryan Krieg. Welcome, Brian. Welcome. Oh no, welcome, Ryan.
Isn't it great that your other co-host is Brian? That's gonna be wild.
Yeah, the whole thing was just such an awkward. We already recorded an intro, but we had audio issues, and I feel like the other one was much better. This one, I was like saying welcome as if it's like my show that I'm welcoming you to, when this is clearly a brand new thing, and it's been a long time since I've done a brand new show.
Well, no, I mean I'll welcome you to my Twitch channel in return. Yeah. And I look forward to getting to know you. I look forward to getting to know your hockey cards, which I know you have a box of, so I'm excited to see some of those.
Oh man, okay, I should have brought them out with me. But I guess that's the thing also. We have so much we want to talk about on this podcast.
Oh my God.
This is the first episode. We don't want to give away too much right at the start and have nothing left to talk about. But I have a feeling this is going to be a long journey because there's so much to get into. And like, it was just like a week or two ago, I feel like, that you messaged on the Keeping Karlsson Discord channel saying, anyone here into hockey cards? I was like, I used to be into hockey cards. Next thing I knew, I've been obsessed with it for the past 2 weeks. So I'm really excited to dig into this. And I feel like we're still right at the start.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah, I'm going to blame you for going bankrupt in a couple months.
Well, no, we're gonna talk about how you will not go bankrupt.
Right, exactly. I'm going to get rich quick.
Well, or invest properly.
Yeah, of course.
Let's say.
I guess we should introduce ourselves to start.
Yeah.
I'm like talking as if like anyone knows who I am or you are. So I'm Elan. I have another podcast that I do weekly called Keeping Karlsson, about fantasy hockey. So I'm sort of already into following hockey players and their sort of value, even though it's a different type of value, their value to my fantasy team, which is usually measured by different categories of goals and assists. And then in some leagues, you're looking at their hits and their blocks and things like that. Now I'm going to try to wrap my head around a new kind of value, which is, I don't know, hype factor, like just how popular is this player and how much do people want to own their cards. And I think that'll be one topic we're definitely going to discuss today, is what leads to a card being valuable. Is it just about points, or is it about a bunch of other things? But anyways, that's me. I'm clearly a bit of a rambler when I get excited. And Ryan, I learned the coolest thing from you yesterday, because I've been talking to you and you've been saying how you're like, or I've just been assuming you're like an expert about hockey cards, but you only started yourself collecting like a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it's been, I started learning about it a couple months ago, and I've been just like reading everything and consuming everything there is out there. And I've been on Twitch playing NHL 20, some other games, and just kind of like making a bit of a content creation world for myself on social media, Twitch, like all those things. And just trying to find my niche in that world, right? Mm-hmm. And then I came across some hockey card content, and actually it was a guy named Gary V, if anyone's out there, that kind of got me interested in actually like purchasing my first hockey card, and like getting back into it. I say back into it, but when I was a kid, I was more of like not even a collector or investor. I just had hockey cards.
Yeah, because you did it the smart way.
Well, yeah.
When I was a kid, I was sort of like neither. Like, you know, I was like obsessed with like getting cards and knowing the values of them. I had a subscription to Beckett magazine.
Right.
I would always be very excited if I saw that one of my cards went from $2 to $3 or something. But I never actually sold any cards, or I never had this idea that I want to actually, I didn't have a lot. My plan was just basically, I'm going to grow old and then my cards are going to be worth so much money, and I guess I'll just never have to work because I'll have my Jaromir Jagr rookie card and my Sergei Fedorov, and like I'd be set. Only to find out now that all those cards that I obsessed over aren't even worth that much. Now it's like, if only I would have gotten a Crosby Young Guns, that's when I could have maybe retired. Forgot a few of those.
Yeah, so you have to keep your day job because the cards aren't panning out.
No, I have one valuable card, which I've put up for auction because of you. We'll see if it's a mistake or not. I have this Wayne Gretzky rookie card, which I'm very excited about this. I put it on eBay to fund this new obsession. So I'm up to over $1,000 on the current bid. It's a Gretzky Rookie O-Pee-Chee KSA 4. And we're going to talk all about the rating stuff. Oh, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, we talked for 2 hours last night when we were supposed to be just planning today about hockey cards. And yeah, I've been following your auction to see like as it goes up. And I'm sure like the last hour is going to be really exciting when people get all excited about it, because you get those notifications on eBay, right, where it's like 1 hour to go,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it's like, oh, I got to get my Gretzky.
Well, yeah, I'm very happy that there's been two like different people bidding. So it's not like as if it's one person, then obviously that person's just happy to leave it the price as it is.
Right.
So hopefully now the two of them could get into a bit of a bidding war, maybe a third person. There's a lot of watchers. I guess that's gonna be another part of this podcast, is learning about how eBay works and sort of how these auctions go, because that seems to be a big way to buy these cards. So maybe we should just set out like a mission statement, not even for today, but like the show in general. Like, what is this podcast? Like, why are we doing it? What are we hoping to accomplish here? Do you want to go first and sort of give a general gist of what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, it's a few things. One of them is just like talking about hockey and like being involved in creating great hockey content for the people. But also just like I've really enjoyed learning about hockey cards and like diving super deep into it. And I noticed that there's a lot of people making content about sports cards, but they're almost entirely focused on basketball, football, baseball.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even name them because I don't care about them. I'm all hockey all day. And so it's like, well, maybe we should be the guys to talk about hockey cards, right? And I think we can cover a lot of this stuff that's applicable to any sport, like you're saying, like eBay buy sell cards, but we can be those like experts on hockey cards, right? And that's what's interesting to me.
For sure. Like, I think definitely it'll be fun, especially since we're already thinking about hockey. I'm like obsessed with fantasy hockey. So it'll be fun. It was like already so fascinating, just like as soon as I started getting into it, right? And then starting to look at like what cards are valued at what amount. And some like weren't surprising, you know, like Connor McDavid's Young Guns are worth quite a bit. Yeah. And Zach Cassian, not as much. But like in between those two, there's some interesting ones. Like I was just talking to you earlier today about how like Nikolai Ehlers, who I think of as a pretty big star in the league, you could get his rookie card. By the way, for the real noobs, and I was this 2 weeks ago, rookie card and Young Guns is apparently the same thing now. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have Young Guns, and there were a whole bunch of different rookie cards. And it's actually very handy now that there's kind of like one main rookie card that you want of each player, which is the Upper Deck Young Guns. So you don't have to start figuring out. I was actually very frustrated when I was talking to you yesterday, Ryan, and I was telling you how I have a Yager rookie card, and I assumed I had the best one because I have the Upper Deck one, but apparently for some reason it's the OPG Premier Yarmer Yager rookie card, which is the valuable one. Which is like, what? Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we could get into the old cards are so much more complicated to me as well. You know, like I think the big thing is that the NHL rights have switched hands from different companies. And so, you know, back in the day, it was kind of a little more all over the place. And I also think with that Yager card in specific, the one you have, he's not playing hockey, right?
Oh, yeah. He's like getting drafted, I believe.
Yeah.
It's like the GM is there giving him his jersey.
So being on the ice is like a big deal.
That's lesson learned. All right, so that's lesson number one. Yeah. So I think I went on a tangent there. What I meant to say is like Nikolai Ehlers' rookie card is only like $5-6 you could get it on eBay, and I feel like he's one break away from being a point per game guy. Like right now he's been a solid 60-65 point guy, but that's because he never gets on the top power play on Winnipeg. But at some point, maybe Blake Wheeler gets too old, or at some point someone gets injured, and all of a sudden Ehlers becomes a real star. So that got me kind of excited. And that's kind of like what kind of got me into this whole thing at first, is seeing like, wow, it is kind of like fantasy. I could buy low on someone and hope that he does better one day. And this time, like not like I was as a kid, I'm actually going to try to learn from you and try to, you know, sell these things when I think their value is the right price to, and, you know, like maybe keep a spreadsheet. And it's like almost like a fun game. It's like there's sort of two things. We could both try to actually make money, make a profit, but also I just think it might just be a fun hobby to sort of, because I play fantasy mainly not for money, it's just for pride of like wanting to win this game against my friends. And now I could play a game against myself, or I could like every year see if I
against
like,
the world.
Profit. Yeah, me against the world. I guess that's true. If I make money, someone's losing money. I think that's how it works. Maybe not. I guess
not technically, right?
Yeah, I didn't think before I said that. I guess if I get a McDavid card cheap, well, no, because if I buy a McDavid card from you and then I sell it later on for like 5 times the price, you kind of lost because you made a mistake for selling it to me.
Right. Well, I didn't get as much profits, but I could have still made a profit. I think
That's true.
it comes down to the person that opens like 100 boxes is probably the guy that ends up losing on those boxes. Uh,
Though you have these sellers on eBay who seems to be that's what they're doing because they have like every single card. And I'd imagine they're making money somehow. Actually, that was another thing. Back to the mission statement of this podcast, which is clearly a lot of things. I would like to get some interviews at some point once we
yes.
actually get to know each other. Yeah, I'd love to talk to one of these eBay sellers and figure out like how are they running this business? Are they making a profit? Like what's their day to day? I'll tell you a secret that I didn't tell you before. One of my main mission statements for doing this podcast is actually the same reason why I started the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey podcast way back when, which was that I wanted Brian to give me fantasy advice like for free without having to feel like a jerk. Like, I'm like messaging him all the time, asking him, oh, should I add this guy and drop this guy? Instead, I just had to do, just like, oh, it's podcast time. And then I ask him the questions. It's like, it's not me asking, it's for the listeners. And so here, like, definitely now's my chance to ask you, how much should I bid on a Pettersson young gun? Is it time for me to sell my Heiskanen now that he's in the cup finals and doing well? So I feel like this is going to be handy just for me to get free advice from someone who, at least to me, seems like quite the expert at this point.
Well, I'm not the expert yet, but I've been learning a lot. And you're right. Like, part of this for me is learning more and diving deeper into it. And hopefully other people can learn from what we're doing. Part of the beauty of Twitch is that, like, Ricky's in the chat talking about exactly what you are, which is Heiskanen, Gurianov, and those guys in the playoffs, that their values have skyrocketed, right? And so, yeah, it's about that community, about learning together, and I mean, talking about hockey.
Yeah, and if you're not watching live, by the way, if you're like listening to the podcast, we'll set up all the social medias. I've set it up. Like we don't. You actually, if you're listening to this, you could become the first follower.
It's true.
At Near Mint Hockey on Twitter, which I haven't even set like a image yet, like a profile picture, but it's there now. And yeah, you could eventually become the first subscriber of the podcast once we download the audio of this, and then I upload it to a podcast feed. So get in on the ground floor, and like all these topics. Yeah, also we'll love to hear from you in between episodes, just like what you want us to talk about, and we'll just kind of work through it all. And I think it'll be interesting that we're going to start sort of in the off season. There'll be free agency, obviously, and stuff like that going on, which might affect player values. But I think it'll be nice for us to sort of set a good baseline, learn a lot about just how this whole hockey card industry works off season, and then we'll be ready to go. Like by the time the next NHL season starts, we'll have all of our knowledge ready, and then we'll just be ready to talk every week about this guy just got a hat trick, time to sell. Like this guy is on a cold streak and his cards are going for cheap, time to buy. And then maybe you'll talk me out of things, and we'll debate.
It's possible.
I'm excited to see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm especially excited for that, for like the young guns, which is the rookie cards that haven't quite made it yet. So if you think about like the Zadinas of the league, which like, the hot prospects, Evan Bouchard on the Oilers, like when these guys hit the league for real, that's when you can see like a jump, I think.
Yeah. And then the question is it sort of like a rookie jump that's not going to sustain, and like now's the time to sell? Like, if Evan Bouchard has a few good games, people get super excited about him, all of a sudden his card might be worth more than it'll ever be in the future. Maybe because maybe at the end of the day he won't be more than a 45-point defenseman.
Yeah, well, I think you're onto something there. I've been looking at a Ryan Poehling. You can get me on the pronounce Poehling. Yeah, damn it. I'm gonna get them. So yeah, I've been looking at one of those that I have, and was he a flash in the pan? Because right now his cards are, I don't know, $15 to $20. And is he going to go up, or is that like the best you're ever going to get? Because he's only got a few games, and granted he was amazing, but like, who is this kid, right? And that is going to impact it. Yeah,
I don't get the impression that he, to talk specifically about Ryan Poehling, like I don't get the impression that he is the guy that they've got locked into the top 6 in their future plans. Like I think he's like a good potential depth player on Montreal, but obviously things could change and he could surprise. But right. If I was excited about a player on Montreal right now, it would definitely be Nick Suzuki number 1, and then Kotkaniemi number 2.
And then Carey Price, Weber, and that's about it.
Well, that's actually another question I want to ask you. about, which I don't know. Again, maybe this will be sort of like we'll just ask a bunch of questions and not really answer any of them, but just like whet the appetite of people about what we're gonna get to. But like something that's fascinating to me is like, should I buy? Like, I think it's pretty straightforward. Like, should I buy a Ryan Paling Young Guns right now? It's like if you think he's gonna be something, then buy it, and then hopefully he'll be something, and then it'll go up. But I think the trickier question is like, should I buy Carey Price? Like, I think Carey Price's best years are probably behind him, but he still is a good goalie, and even if he was on the downswing, you know, and like his career is almost over, is it possible his card could still go up, or is it like a dumb decision to buy his card now? Like, for example, I just was on eBay and I was browsing through I'm doing this thing, where once I buy one card from a seller, then I'm browsing through all their cards that they have for sale, because now I could get cheaper shipping since I'll just combine it with something I already bought. So I was looking at, like, I saw a guy like David Perron, and his Young Guns card was on sale for like $2. And, meanwhile, like a Joel Farabee on Philadelphia is going for like 3 or 4. Like, I'll be very surprised. Like, Farabee might be a good player, but I'll be surprised if he ends up having as successful a career as Perron has had. But at this point, is there a reason to expect David Perron's card to go up from this $2-3? I don't think he's going into the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't think he's going to win the Art Ross anytime soon. Like, I think at this point he might have a few more 60s, maybe even 70-point seasons left in him. But if what he did this year wasn't enough to bring him up higher than $2, then why buy this card?
Yeah, like David Perron in particular, the best chance you have is they go on to win another cup and he's like the superstar in that run.
Right.
And that's like, he's not going to do anything else. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't really, and he doesn't have that star power too, which I think in hockey cards more so than fantasy, or even just like liking a player as a fan. In hockey cards, you need that superstar power, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason that these young guns that haven't made the league yet have a little bit of a bump is like nobody knows for sure if those guys are superstars or just players, right? You know for sure that Perron is a good player, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. It's very interesting, right? Because it makes me think, because when, like, David Perron's just one example, but then it's also almost like a lot of these young guns that we're going to be buying and selling over the years, best case will become David Perron and will one day be worth a couple bucks. So it's like, I think a big part of our learning is going to be like, when do you sell these cards? Like, once you realize that a guy's not going to be
Oh, I think we might have lost Elan.
are you frozen or am I frozen? Okay, for a second you froze. Sorry.
No?
At that point, you have to sell now while the hype is high, knowing that 20 years from now, this player is going to be forgotten. And one player we were talking about yesterday, which I should probably stop referencing a conversation that wasn't recorded. From now on, every conversation we'll have will be recorded.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like Brock Besser, I was thinking about. Yeah. Like, Besser is great and he's still young, but like, I don't know. I just don't get the impression that Brock Besser is going to be like a real, like, huge superstar in the league. I think he's going to be really good. Like, maybe he'll help the Canucks go to the cup, but when his career is all said and done and we're like 20 years out from this, I think we're still going to remember the Sedins. I think we're still going to remember Elias Pettersson, maybe Quinn Hughes, as like, these like, real like stars, like some of the best Canucks ever. And I don't know, like Brock Besser will be in the conversation with like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a Russ Courtnall, maybe better than Russ Courtnall, but like,
that's
what
rough.
I mean? Like,
that's rough. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I guess all I'm saying is like, I feel like there's going to be a good time. I'm not saying now's the time, but I think there might be a good time before he retires that you're going to want to sell your Brock Besser card. And it's going to be interesting to figure out when that time is.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely, it depends on the player too. I think if you think Besser is your guy that's going to stick with Pettersson his whole career, maybe you do want to hang out with him, and it's like basically Sedin and Sedin, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course, it's concerning that Besser was already bumped from him this year when they traded for Tyler Toffoli. So
I kind of want to go back to the beginning though and talk about kind of like where we're coming from. Ricky's asking a question of what our personal favorite teams are. And also I want to get back into like the early days of our hockey cards, right? Like, when did you first start collecting hockey cards, or like what's the story of your youth with hockey cards, basically?
Yeah, okay. I guess I could go first and then you can go. Yeah. So okay, how about all of that convo? Again, that was setting the table for future episodes. And now let's like focus
Yeah.
on the goal of this episode, which is just to introduce ourselves
Yeah.
and try to convince you to come back for another episode. Uh yeah, like I sort of was saying, like when I was a kid, I was like at some point I got super obsessed with hockey cards. I think now that I'm reading a little bit, turns out like I wasn't the only one. Like around the time that
hmm
every kid was getting obsessed with hockey cards, that was me, like around 1991, 92, so all those rookie cards from around then I have. I was like one of these really attention to detail type of collectors in terms of, like I had a binder of all the players that I had from every team, and like if a player got traded, then I had to move that player over to their new current team,
Ah.
like so that my thing was organized. And then I had my Beckett guide, and every month if players like I had a pile of like cards that were like $1 to $5 and a pile of cards that were like 5 to 10, and if their values went up, I had to be moving them around. Like if they got valuable enough, they got promoted from being in the soft plastic case to the hard plastic case. And then sometimes players would come out of the hard plastic case because their card value went down. And like that was my life for maybe like 10 years. And at one point, actually, to bring the whole story home, to this Gretzky card, I had my first job where I was like a teacher assistant when I was in grade 8, and I got paid like $5 an hour. And over whatever it was, like a few months, I ended up maybe accumulating 100, 150, $200 in my bank account. And I went to a card store, and I thought it was like a steal, which turns out it was. I saw this Gretzky card. I believe it was like either the Gretzky card was $80, or I think I'm starting to have a faint memory that I might have bought a Gretzky rookie and a Messier rookie for $80, like combined. And so like either way, I know I spent $80. I took home this prize, and then my mom was like, "What the hell are you doing? You just spent, like, it took you like, a couple months to earn this money, and just for you to like spend it all on a hockey card." And luckily it's not one of these stories, like there's the old people who talk about like these horror stories that their parents like threw out their box of cards and it contained like a Gordie Howe rookie or something. So
You're
it's
really
not sort of
setting
like
me up here.
Oh no, I hope that you're not gonna have a story like that. But anyways, okay, I'll finish quick. Basically, my mom kind of grounded me from collecting hockey cards. Like I said, I wasn't allowed to buy hockey cards for like 6 months to like sort of reset because I was spending too much money on hockey cards. And so I remember I had all these loopholes where like I had friends who I would like try to convince them to buy a pack of cards so I could trade with them, just so I could still get the rush of opening a pack. And also I tried to work it out where anytime I got a present, like if someone like gave me like $20 for my birthday, like that doesn't count as me buying a hockey card, because if I just buy it, it's as if that person bought me the card for my birthday. I'm just
Right.
like, it's sort of like just removing the middleman. So I had all these negotiations, but I just remember it was like it was a very tough time after I bought this Gretzky card because I was in exile, but it worked out now because now I'm going to be able to fund the first few months of this podcast, hopefully, like all the cards that I want to buy.
So, how many years ago did you buy that Gretzky, do you think?
Yeah, so I think I was in like grade 8. So I'm gonna do the math. I'm gonna say around like 95 or something, like I'm thinking like 25 years ago.
25 years. And it's over 10 times as valuable today,
Right.
right? So, I
Are you
mean,
saying that? Are you saying I shouldn't sell it because in like another 25 years it might be another 10 times as valuable?
I mean,
Who knows?
no, like who knows? But I just think it's interesting to think about, like, from an investment perspective. 10x is pretty good. Like,
Yeah, the interesting thing is I feel like it wasn't this valuable. Like when I sort of quit. Oh yeah, so I guess to finish my background story is at some point around like 2000 or something, I guess. I don't even remember like the impetus for this, but at some point I just kind of stopped collecting hockey cards. Like I remember I was obsessed with Daniel Alfredson. I had all of his rookie cards. Those are around like 95, 96, and I still collected for a few years after that. But then around 2000, like I just look at my collection now and like sort of stops. Like I don't have any cards like after 2000. So I guess maybe I got into like dating or something. Like I don't even know. I just like lost interest. And yeah, and so my collection's over. And I believe at the time I used to look into how much that Gretzky card was worth, and I remember having the impression that it wasn't worth that much, like $100, $200, and then when you messaged us on the Discord being like, who's into hockey cards, I started looking. I was like, I have this one card, I'm curious to know what it's worth. And now to see it's gone up again, so I guess there's like this new boom of hockey card collecting, and all of a sudden all these old cards, except for the ones that I collected, unfortunately, like from the 90s, because I guess everyone was collecting those. But it is interesting that like these older cards got to come along with the boom, like along with like McDavid and Crosby and whoever, and Ovechkin. And also I guess Wayne Gretzky came for the ride.
yeah. If you ended up having the right cards, it's a big deal. But there's so many older cards that just just weren't a big deal or aren't a big deal. And I find it really interesting how that gets decided, quote unquote decided, because it really is just, it's the people that decide. Like, no one's out there setting prices. Like, the masses decided that like one Yager is more valuable than another. And like that's kind of changed, as you say. Like these days it's young guns. Back then, like it didn't even necessarily say that it was a rookie on the card.
Yeah, you just had to know.
Yeah.
Sometimes the card would say rookie, but it wouldn't be the rookie card.
Whoa.
Because they would have had, because like Upper Deck would have like hot rookies or something as like part of the set,
right?
But then like it happened to be the year before they had like World Junior Championship cards in the set, and then that player happened to be there. I think that's the case with Felix Potvin. I have a Potvin rookie that it's like some World Junior Championship card, and I think it's 90-91 Upper Deck, but his 91-92 Upper Deck rookie card or card says rookie on it. It's not his official rookie card.
That's so tricky.
I know.
Yeah.
Now it's easier.
So yeah, like for me, I mean, first of all, I have two stories to tell. So the first one is like I was the same kid with binder of hockey cards. You take them all out, you reorganize them in whatever way, by team, by player, by like who knows, and you just spend like all day with your cards on the floor, and all the players, even though you've never seen them play because you can't even stay up that late, and. Yeah, I loved it. I don't even remember where I got all these cards, except for one. Like I do remember we went to an auction at my local school, and I went with my parents, and I was probably pretty bored, but there was a box of hockey cards, and I was like begging my mom, like, please, I need this box of hockey cards, like badly, like really wanted it.
Do you remember what it was?
No, I don't remember what it was. I know there was Gretzky's in it.
Okay.
And I remember we're bidding on this, and there's like what I thought at the time was an old guy. It was probably like a guy my age now.
Right.
But, and he's bidding us up, and my mom is like, I don't think we can bid anymore, right? Because it's starting to get like actually expensive. She's like, this is just hockey cards. But we ended up winning the bid. Like we bid this guy up, and this guy's like giving me dirty looks. I'm like, I don't know how old, like 10. But I was stoked to get this box of cards, right? And you open it up, and I remember there's like Gretzky's in there, like all these old cards. I don't know if they're cool Gretzky's or not. I just like the players, and I like the cards. So from my perspective, I wasn't like I didn't even know what Beckett was. I just like these hockey cards. And then, yeah, the story that I was kind of alluding to when you were talking about parents throwing out your cards is we had a garage sale one day. And my mom like puts me in control, right, of like selling everything. And so I'm like stoked. I'm like, we're having a garage sale. I'm the money man. I'm setting prices. I'm selling stuff. And a guy shows up and is like, hey, do you have any cards? And I didn't even have them out, but I was like, yeah, I'll go find my cards.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then so like I have my binder of cards, and he's like obviously very interested because again, this is an older guy that like probably knows what he's talking about with cards. And I was older at this point, so like beyond my hockey cards years, and so he's offering me, I think it was like $15, and I was like, oh nice, I'll take your $15 100%. And like
do you have any memory of like what you gave up?
Well,
maybe it's better that way to not know.
I mean, like, so I remember there were Gretzky's, and I remember there was stuff, but I have no notion.
If you're talking like 91-92 pro set, that was like the worst set ever. So if it was like a bunch of Gretzky's of that, it's not worth anything. So hopefully it's that.
Yeah, so there's a total chance that I gave away nothing, and or like $5 card, like no big deal. But who knows? I have no idea. Yeah. But like I've never forgotten that, because I'm like, I missed them afterwards, right? I was like, why did I do that? That was so dumb. Like $15 or whatever. Like, what are you doing? And so I've gotten some like older cards recently just to like look at them and like see what's going on, and like some of them I'm like, oh, I kind of recognize the style of that card from my youth, but I don't remember what cards I had.
Okay, well, that's cool. It's like an origin story here. It's almost like sounds like you're going to become a supervillain one day, and like you're going to go a vigilante against anyone that's trying to rip off kids. So maybe like an anti-hero type of character,
Yeah,
which actually,
well, like I think about that actually, and like I go to garage sales once in a while now, and like I'm looking for cards on the internet or whatever. Um, but if I was gonna buy cards from like a 10-year-old, like I feel like I'd look at it differently now.
right?
And like if I was like going through and saw like a rookie Gretzky, like I'm not gonna give this kid $20. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Uh,
You want to be like doing business with someone who knows what they're doing.
yeah, yeah. And probably their parents are very educated these days. You can Google everything, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Interesting story for sure. I'm going to assume you didn't give away anything good, just because it will be too sad otherwise.
that's what we're gonna go with. That's what we're gonna go with.
Okay, so that's our origin. I guess we had some other fun questions here. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the chat, by the way, including Paku saying he has a collection that's worth over $300,000. So I guess
Yeah,
that that's like a tough thing. It's like at one point you just say, "I'm just gonna cut bait here, sell everything," because you never know when the whole industry is gonna go bust again, like it did, I guess, around the mid '90s or 2000 when I stopped collecting. And then that's not worth 300,000. Maybe it's only worth 50,000. But at the same time, obviously, it could still go up. But that's
right. Well, I think like in Ricky's case, Puck you, he's been collecting and investing and trading for so long that like he rode the dip because it died for a bit and now it's gone back up, right? And if you believe that that's kind of the trend that will always happen, it'll kind of go up and down, then it's not like it would ever go to zero.
yeah, that's true. And plus, like, I guess what we're going to try to talk about on this podcast over the series of episodes is like, I think we're going to be buying and selling, right? We're going to
Yeah,
be trying to sell cards when we think that it's at a good price, and we're going to buy them when we think they're low. So I guess you can sort of have a collection that's worth a lot, but also not be just like sitting on it like I did as a kid, or like you did the
yeah,
opposite of as a kid. I guess like we should probably start wrapping up. I guess we had some other sort of get to know us questions, like what's your favorite card? Like, what's your favorite team? You want to just give a little background of like what are you into? Like, what team do you like? And like, what players do you like? Or, who do you want? Whose card do you want that you don't have?
yeah. Well, I'm a big Oilers fan.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I think that in general, like I'm a hockey fan, so I love a lot of players as well. Um, like I just like to watch good hockey. So, like I have here, I brought over my Braden Point, and
Who, by the way, just scored.
did he? I haven't been watching. Yeah, so this is my a Braden Point card that like right now this is my most exciting card because Braden Point is just crushing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting to watch, and he kind of like was an underdog. Um, so that's kind of a cool one that I have around, and uh, it's interesting like when the off season comes around, like what am I going to be thinking? Someone that is on the Oilers that I'm also interested in is Yamamoto because his
Right.
cards still haven't spiked, even though he had a very good finish to the season. And he could be a guy that's like Braden Point, right? He just like all of a sudden is like, oh, is this guy as good as Draisaitl? Like maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but like, do we start
Yeah.
talking about him in that way? And obviously the Oilers have the team that if they get it together could go far year after year, and so does that card make a good investment for the next 5 years?
That's when my fantasy hockey brain jumps in, and I'll need you to tell me if these are like useful insights or not. Like, I would say that Yamamoto had a high shooting percentage on this run, and also he got some power play time due to an injury to, I believe, Connor McDavid.
Yep.
And also that got him onto the top line playing with Draisaitl and RNH, which did hold for a bit afterwards. But I feel like there's a lot of reasons to think that maybe what he did wasn't sustainable at the end of last year. But at the same time, he's young. So you could also think that like he's just going to get better regardless. And he was a first round pick for a reason. So he's an interesting guy. And like, yeah, you have to wonder, I guess that's the bet you make. Like, I'm a little bit wary of Yamamoto, but still, if we're talking about, maybe I wouldn't, if I was playing fantasy, like trade, Patrick Kane for him. But, if I could buy his hockey card for $12,
Right.
then sure.
Yeah.
It's not a big cost.
In that way, if you assume that you have a unlimited source of money, which obviously you don't. We should talk a little bit more about that at one point, but it kind of puts all the players on the same playing field, right? Because what you're really talking about is, are they going to increase in value or decrease? It doesn't matter if it's a $5 card or a $50 card. You're not so much like, because in fantasy, like, it's a little different. It's like, will this player be successful like this year?
Well, you could play in a dynasty league and then you're caring about really long term.
True.
But even still, there's some players that are really useful in fantasy that maybe won't be as valuable in hockey cards just because they're maybe in a bad market, like, so like Clayton Keller, maybe even if he gets 70 points, maybe his card won't be worth so much. But yeah, so that's going to be a fun topic. Okay, so you're an Oilers fan. I actually have sort of myself become like not a fan of any team, and it's a bit of a problem for me. Like, I used to be a huge Sens fan as a kid,
Right?
and then like the more I got into fantasy hockey, I'm just so obsessed with winning my leagues that like I just don't care about how any team does. I care about my team, like my team is my favorite team and I want to win like my league. And so whoever I have on my team, those are my favorite players. But so yeah, I obviously I live in Toronto and I just like the idea of the Leafs doing well, because when you're not in COVID times, it's fun to go to bars and like high five people when the team is doing well and like just having these fun hangouts, just like when the Raptors went far. So I guess I cheer for them. I have a friend who's a Habs fan, so I've been watching some Habs games with him, and like it was fun following the Canucks in this playoffs because they had a pretty good run up to Game 7 against Vegas. So I guess those are like kind of my favorite teams. Definitely in terms of like players, Erik Karlsson has always been like my guy. I love Erik Karlsson. Now is actually an interesting time. I thought I could get his hockey card pretty cheap. It's actually still selling for a lot, even though he's had a couple down years. And I think he might have a bounce back in him depending on his health. So I'm looking to get an Erik Karlsson card at some point.
And, I think you have to.
Yeah, I think I just have to. It's just like so much. It's like they're going for like $60+. And at that point, it's like I should buy a Braden Point who has like this chance to really surge. So Karlsson could end up making the Hall of Fame one day. Maybe that will be a good time for him to.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one when he retires. Like, if he doesn't win a cup, is he worthy?
Well, I don't like that. Like, but it doesn't matter. But I'm not the one who like decides, so it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like there's like Joe Thornton, doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because he didn't win a cup. Like, he was good enough. Like, Martin Jones couldn't stop the puck, and that probably was a big part of Joe Thornton not winning the cup a couple years ago. So, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But definitely the hype. That's the thing about these hockey card values, right? It's all about the hype and like if these players are buzzed. Like what's his name? Ayers, David Ayers.
David Ayers.
His card is like selling for a lot right now. There's no chance that in like 20 years, this David Ayers card is going to be selling for $50 on eBay. No one will even know who he is. It was just a really fun story this year. If you have anyone listening, if you have a David Ayers card right now,
sell it.
Sell right now. He's going to be forgotten.
Yeah. Well, and he's also a Canes player. So like, well, sort of like he's the Zamboni driver in Toronto, but he's a Canes player. Actually, that brings up one card that I really want, just because, actually for no good reason, is the Gritty Young Guns.
Well, Gritty.
It's so
I think Gritty's
cool.
Gritty's gonna be remembered a lot longer than David Ayers. Like, I think Gritty's like the coolest mascot maybe ever. Like, he got mentioned on John Oliver. Like as soon as he came out, like people love Gritty. So I think that's not too bad.
No, and he's a Flyers player. So like, well, player. And like the mascot, unlike players, kind of lives forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like you just replace it with a new person inside, I guess.
Who knows if Gritty still has his best years ahead? Like maybe he'll do something really shocking at some point and get back in the news, and that'll be a good time. So like that's a whole other crazy thing. I guess this is like investing in companies at some point, right? Like you have to. But anyways,
well,
I feel like we could just talk about so much. I want to keep going, but I kind of had this. I had this idea that we should keep this show short, so that like maybe new people that come across the podcast aren't going to be like, I'm not going to listen to a 3-hour hockey card podcast episode 1. So I wonder if we should start wrapping up. Though I feel bad. I'm having a good time, but we could always just do another one.
We can always do another one. Yeah, I think under an hour is definitely a good mark to hit.
Yeah. I will mention one player I'm interested in investing right now. You mentioned Gritty as yours. I don't know if that's your official one. The guy that I'm like really like, I feel like I want to buy it, even though you were saying that he might already be too high. But Elias Pettersson is really jumping out at me as like, his card is selling for like $100 on eBay auctions right now, his Young Guns card. But Also, I don't see why he can't be like a top 5 player in the league for the next like 10 years
Yeah.
and be at the level of a Draisaitl or whatever, you know? So it's just like, I still want to get it. Like, I just don't think it's going to go down. I think it'll go
Yeah,
up.
I think, well, so my thought on Pedersen is like his value isn't like crazy, but he might still go down before the season starts because the hype is still kind of remembered from when he destroyed in the playoffs.
Right.
So, maybe in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you'll get a better deal.
Good point. Okay, yeah, that's
But
smart.
but if you believe that he's like at even like a 75% McDavid level, like his cards are going to go up by a lot. And I would never tell you that Pedersen is a bad guy to invest in. And the other thing that's interesting with hockey cards is like if you're investing in a guy like Pedersen, at least his value could go down, but it's like it's never going to go to zero, right? Like he's still Pedersen.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if he like had a career-ending injury, I don't know what would happen, but like that's the only thing I can think of that would make him zero.
Yeah, I just feel like at some point, hopefully, unless he has some bad luck like a Thornton, like maybe he gets a cup at some point. Maybe he wins an Art Ross at some point. Like if McDavid maybe misses some time one season or for whatever reason,
Yeah.
like Pedersen ends up getting a shot, and like it just seems like his best times are ahead, which would you expect from like a 21, 22-year-old, whatever he is. So I
Yeah.
think he's younger. I think he's like 20. So I
He's
would
super
definitely,
young.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting one. And I actually, yeah, I have one, so I'm not as like, I'm like fine.
All right. Well, if you think that it's going to go down in a little bit, then you could sell me yours for, I'll give you $90, and then you
Yeah.
could maybe get him for 70 a couple of months from now.
I'm gonna have to politely decline, but not because I don't want to sell it for that. It's because I want to get it graded.
Oh,
Because
smart.
that's I don't know. It's just a sweet card.
I think we definitely need to, in an early episode, we need to talk about grading. We need to do a whole show about grading because that's the big question. So again, I'll ask a question and leave it kind of unanswered maybe, but it's like you have a card. I actually have a Kucherov Young Guns that I just bought recently off of Kijiji, and it looks like it's in good shape to me. Maybe I could go grab it next time
Well,
we talk
I
about
have a
it.
couple cards too that I don't know if you can see me right now.
Oh, Hedman's.
So this is Hedman and this is Benn. So
They're
this
like
is
in the exact same position almost. Like
same position, same year, which I find is really interesting.
if you would have held it farther back, I wouldn't have been able to tell which one was Hedman and which one was Ben.
Yeah, and like both could be the first person to lift the Stanley Cup this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see, these are ungraded, and I've already bought them for less than what they're selling. But what do I do with these? Do I like put them on auction like tonight, or do I send them into PSA and wait like however friggin' long it takes?
Yeah, maybe can you give the background there? Like this is like to get the card graded. And again, to give like full background, like if you just go on
Mhm.
eBay right now, the same card ungraded that looks like it's mint condition,
Yeah,
and then a card that's
yeah,
like,
like these.
like those, or like a graded 9.5 or even 9 on PSA is going to be selling for so much more. So
Yeah,
like you would think it's a no-brainer to just go get your card graded,
right.
but the cost of it is like you have to actually spend money. I think it's like $10-15 per card, maybe more depending on how many you send. And you have to wait. You were telling me that right now they have a backlog and like we might be talking months before you get your card back.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like, so these guys, yeah, they look like they're in good condition. They're both going, or sorry, I bought them for I think like maybe 50 total. So I think 30 and 20. And they're both going for $15 to $20 more than that today. Like this.
Mm-hmm.
But each one is over 100 easily if you get it graded and you get a good grade.
Of course.
Right. But yeah, as you say, it costs like probably $10-15 to get graded. And it can be months to get back. You can pay more to get it really quickly, but like, come on. And so, yeah, there's there's this math problem that's like, what do I do? And also, is there a time where these guys are going to be as valuable again as they are today? Because if you get them graded, it's going to be however long before they come back, and then
by the time they come back, there might have been like some cool free agent signings,
right,
like some big trades. Like people aren't thinking about. I feel like they're also two different guys. Like Jamie Benn was like his card, I'd imagine, was not worth a lot. Like at the end, like when COVID started, and the season got paused. He's coming off a terrible regular season, his worst ever. Like he's clearly seemed like, I think we were talking about him on Keeping Karlsson. Like this guy's kind of done in terms of being a valuable guy in fantasy. And then we actually did an interview with Sean Shapiro, who's the beat writer for Dallas, and it was interesting. He really called it. He was saying, though I guess a lot of our beat writers called a lot of things and most of them weren't true, so maybe it's just bound to happen that everyone's talking positively about their players. But he said that like Jamie Benn's the type of player that if he could have some rest and only play like part-time, he might still be able to be really effective. But just the grind of a full season, the way he plays and all the injuries and whatever he's had. Anyways, long story short, things worked out really well. All of a sudden, Benn goes from maybe his lowest value, at least in terms of fantasy. I guess I don't know about in terms of hockey cards, but now he's probably at, and now he's at his highest value. He's like leading the Stars in points on this playoff, or maybe he's behind Heiskanen. But he's among the top in points on the team, and like you say, now he might win the cup for his first time. So, like I would feel like you should sell him now, because I don't think next year he's going to continue what he's doing in these playoffs. I think he's more likely to just go back to what he did last season. But then again, I don't know, because I'm just getting into this, right? And this is something we'll learn as we do this podcast and keep following this industry. But like, if he, let's say, wins the Conn Smythe, let's say the best case scenario, like he just gets a hat trick in every game for the rest of the playoffs, and like he wins the Conn Smythe, he holds the cup, and like everyone's loving him. And then let's say next year he's like, just back to how he was last year. Does his card value go down, or does he sustain what he has now because he did it? Like he won the cup, he had that great playoffs. Like I don't know.
Well, from what I've seen, his card value will go back down, but maybe not to where it was. But for me, the big question with Benn, like the reason not to sell him like now-ish, is like if he's going to make the Hall of Fame, right? So I think you pointed out to me that he's got an Art Ross, he's got World Junior Championship, he's got Olympic gold. If he gets a cup and a Conn Smythe, he's probably got a handful of other random trophies that I don't know about. Like, does that make him Hall of Fame worthy? He doesn't have a ton of points. Like, I don't know if he'll hit 1,000 in his career, but that's kind of like, that's probably the next big thing for him, unless they happen to win another cup.
Well, let me ask you a question then, Ryan. Like this year, Drew McGinley and Marian Hossa are kind of like lead the class of people getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Did their cards go up when or you probably didn't collect at that point?
I wasn't paying attention at that point, so I don't know. I only know from watching another content creator in other sports who talked about how their cards went up in value like the day they got announced and the day after, and then that was kind of it. So if you sold them in that like 2 or 3 day window, you were at like the peak, and then they went back down to like reality.
So what happens if you're like, you save your Jamie Benn card for this Hall of Fame announcement, and then like 15 years from now he gets the call for the Hall of Fame, but you happen to be on vacation during that time,
oh my god,
like camping or something without internet, and then you miss it, and it's like you held it all that time, but still, if he's a Hall of Famer, then probably it won't go back down too far. But I don't know if he is. So it's a tricky question. Obviously we don't have answers right now, and this will be the kind of thing, maybe we'll have some lessons learned. It'll be fun to do this long enough to actually learn some lessons and have some like, man, I can't believe we said that you should buy this card, or I can't believe I sold this card. It'll be fun.
I think definitely learning from mistakes is going to be a big topic to talk about in like even 2 months, 6 months, a year from now.
I feel like I've made some mistakes that I've like, as soon as you said like hockey cards are cool and I looked into it, I got super excited and I bid $5 on a Jack Campbell Young Guns, because I thought to myself like, oh, Jack Campbell for sure, because like, what if Frederik Andersen gets injured? He's in a big market. Next thing you know, Jack Campbell's a starting goalie on the Leafs, and I was like getting all excited, and then I saw I was like, $5 is nothing. I have $5 in my pocket, and so I just bid, and the next thing I knew, I won the auction because no one else bid, because no one else wants this card, and for this much money anyways. And then all of a sudden I got hit with the shipping cost, and now all of a sudden it was like $9. And then I'm realizing now I could have totally gotten this card for a lot cheaper. I just got really excited. I didn't even search to see how much I could have gotten it from. And, maybe one day he'll be worth 20, 25, and I'll definitely sell as soon as I get the opportunity, as soon as he gets a shutout and Leafs fans go crazy. But
maybe.
Yeah. or maybe I won't. Maybe that'll be my second mistake. But I don't know. Like, I feel like it's tough not to get swept up, right? And also, eBay is so good, like you were saying, at like really teasing you and being like, you were willing to spend 4, now it's at 450. Don't you just want to spend 5? And but that's going to be actually another lesson. Again, rambling, but like, should I even care about, like, maybe the lesson at the end of this will be like, don't even worry about these $4 or $5 auctions. If you want the card, get it for $6. Like, what's the big deal? And maybe also it's like, this is like small potatoes, and we should be talking about, should I buy Cale Makar right now? So
yeah. Well, I think we should have kind of maybe an investment episode, I'll call it, where we talk about, because I think you can get into it at different levels, right? If you're a guy that has, or a girl that has $100 to spend, then you can make $1 or $5 cards go a long way, and your collection becomes pretty big. If you're looking to have a really big collection with like a bunch of Makars and Pedersens, you obviously need a bigger budget. But I think you can get into it kind of at not any level. Like if you have $10, you can only invest in like 1 or 2 players, really. But yeah, I think it's interesting that like there's different levels, and then there's like Gretzky and Crosby, like.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do an investment episode. Okay, well, and also, by the way, if you've been listening to this, if you've been enjoying it and you have ideas of what you want us to talk about, like, again, just let us know what you want us to do, and we're just gonna keep recording these episodes. I think once a week is the plan, or I don't know, maybe if we get the itch more often, I guess we can do whatever we want. There's no rules.
There's no rules. But I like the once a week.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Maybe if there's an emergency, like if the cup is won on a day and like we see cards spiking, maybe we have to do an emergency episode and be like, everyone, like, this is happening right now. But we won't have a lot of listeners at that point. Maybe next year's cup. But anyway, what I was gonna say, maybe to wrap up, is when you talked about having $100 budget, maybe that's a good time to mention this game that we're to organize. So we have I think this is like a pretty crazy but maybe also unique, fun idea, especially now that the hockey season is ending, and fantasy hockey season has been over for a while now. So Ryan and I were thinking of starting a fantasy hockey cards league kind of thing, and I'll just give you the basic gist, and maybe we can talk about it more in the future. We've made a whole rules doc also, but basically everyone's going to have a budget of $100, which is your own budget, right? You like fund yourself, but we're going to have a spreadsheet, and anyone who's participating, you like register, I'm in, like we'll have a deadline. Now we have like 10 people playing the game. And then anytime any of us buy a card off of eBay or something, you like put it on the spreadsheet that I bought the Adam Fox Young Guns. I spent $12. And then if you sell it at some point, then you maybe made a profit, and we're going to track all of that. And at the end of the year, we'll see who can make the most money in a year, or whatever the time span is that we decided. Maybe you don't have to sell all your cards, but we could just go by at the end of the year the value of each card based on like what it's recently selling for on eBay or something. So it'll be a way to sort of play fantasy. You're buying, you're selling. We could also like trade with each other theoretically if I want.
That's my favorite part. Yeah,
trade, and I guess we could also trade, like sell to each other, right?
Sure.
And we have some ideas to make it like easier for people. One great thing that Ryan offered is he's willing, and I'll vouch for him as someone I've never met, but it seems like a cool guy. He's offering like we could just all buy our cards and like have them sent to him, and then like at the end of the whole thing, he'll like ship everyone their cards, assuming we all pay for our shipping, like send them money for shipping. But like so like if I could just like buy a bunch of cards, they'll all be shipped to Ryan. Then if I want to sell one, he's offering that he's going to be the one to go drive the card to the post office or whatever, and just tell you what you owe him, and you'll send him money or whatever. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. That's just like, we're going to have this game kind of organized by Ryan, and if you just have $100, you could go and we'll have a prize at the end, right? Like maybe we could say everyone also puts in, we'll come up with like the specifics. Maybe we'll each put in $20, and then if like 20 of us are playing, then we have $400. Maybe the winner gets a Pedersen graded rookie or something, something really cool.
Yeah.
The prize, whoever can make the most money. So it's a idea in progress. Maybe let's make a hyperlink for that. Oh, yeah. I have a domain now, so I think I can forward. Okay, so nearminthockey.com/game.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, and I'm excited about that because it'll help kind of drive people to get involved. If people kind of want a first taste of buying and selling hockey cards, they've got this like platform to do it. There'll be a community, people will be talking about it. You can watch what other people are doing. And then we can talk about it, right? We can say, like big trade in the league.
Or just anytime anyone buys anything, right? I feel like
Right.
each episode we should look at the spreadsheet and see what's been the
Yeah.
activity this week. Oh,
Yeah.
Ricky sold this card for $50.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a smart move, or do you think he should have held on? Like, I think it'll be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
again, like, just kind of read the show notes wherever you saw it. We're gonna like get all our socials up and everything. We'll have more like clear links to provide next week. But we got nearminthockey.com/game to find the rules to this thing. Follow us on Twitter at nearminthockey. Oh yeah, because the podcast is called the Near Mint Hockey Card Podcast. In case you
That's the one. Instagram too. I made an Instagram. Although same as your Twitter account, there's no content or profile picture or anything, but it's coming.
So we'll work on that, right? And yeah, I hope that you like this podcast. So tweet at us or email us, nearminthockey@gmail.com. Comment on this Twitch channel. However you listen to it, figure it out, okay? Figure out a way to contact us and let us know if you liked it, because we would like to know how we can make this a good podcast. And maybe one day this will be the very best hockey card podcast of all time.
That would be pretty cool. And yeah, if you watch on Twitch, drop a follow too, because we're going to go live every week, or maybe some random times. The playoffs are going to end soon. Like, what are we going to do about that?
I mean, I'm gonna have a lot. I feel like we already have like at least like 20 episodes worth of content that I want to get to. So I have no concerns about what we're gonna talk about. Well, the playoffs are over, that's for sure.
Oh no, I have tons to talk about. And it sounds like through our chat here, we've already got at least one person interested in our fantasy hockey card league, and there's clamoring for opening some packs. So we'll probably have to do that at some point and kind of talk about opening packs.
Yeah, we could talk about the whole, the money side of it. Of like, is it worth it? Like, should I just suck it up and buy the Pettersson Young Guns card for $100, or should I spend $100 on 18-19 Upper Deck packs and just hope that I can get it, and also some other good cards? So I guess we could work through the math of that. I have a feeling the answer is just to buy the card, but obviously I feel like someone has to be buying these boxes and making a profit. Otherwise, how are these cards getting out into the world?
Of course. Yeah. Many people are opening these boxes, and some people are opening like so many boxes.
Yeah. I guess another thing we can do at some point is start a Discord. We got a lot of things that we can do. We do have, by the way, if you don't mind, if I could just throw a quick plug out there.
Of course.
Plug away. If you're into fantasy hockey or just into hockey, I think that we have a really good hockey podcast, even if you don't play fantasy. Keeping Karlsson is the name of the podcast, as in if you're in a keeper league, you have Erik Karlsson. It could also be as if you have an Erik Karlsson Young Guns card and you've decided you're going to keep it for a while. So we've actually got a fun Discord for our patrons. But if you go to keepingkarlsson.com or whatever, search for us on Twitter, chat with us there. So yeah, I'm Elan. This has been Ryan, and I'm looking forward to our next show, I guess in a week from now.
Yeah, great first show. And yeah, I can't wait to dig into like so many more players and cards and topics.
Definitely.